Imagine losing everything you've ever known. Your home, your livelihood, your whole sense of belonging, and then being forced onto some unknown road, just hoping, for a glimmer of hope somewhere far away in this promised land. What does that kind of journey do to a family, to a person's spirit? And, well, what happens when that promised land turns out to be another struggle entirely, maybe even more brutal than the one you left behind? Today, we're taking a deep dive into one of American literature's most powerful, most enduring works, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. Published way back in 1939, this novel, it isn't just a story, it's really a searing indictment of social injustice. It's a poignant elegy for a lost way of life, and honestly, a timeless reflection on the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. Our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack the core narrative, the intricate, poignant themes, and those unforgettable characters that make The Grapes of Wrath such a cornerstone. We want to try and grasp its profound message and explore why it continues to resonate with us, even today, maybe in ways that might surprise you.
And we'll be drawing our insights from, well, a detailed summary of the novel, really distilling its essence. We want to understand not just what happened to the Joad family, but why their story became such a universal tale. A tale of displacement, yeah, but also systemic injustice and the human spirit's just profound capacity for solidarity, often against truly overwhelming odds. We'll explore how Steinbeck's meticulous research and his journalistic eye really lent the novel this devastating realism, a realism that sparked both outrage at the time and deep empathy.
So settle in for some truly illuminating insights, maybe some profound aha moments that might challenge your perceptions. It's a journey into the heart of a story that, even though it's set in the 1930s, speaks volumes about confronting adversity, about finding dignity in the toughest of times, and, the enduring power of community. Let's dig in. We should probably start with the genesis of their suffering, right? And what we'll call part one, the Dust Bowl Exodus, a nation upheaved. The setting for the Grapes of Wrath is absolutely crucial, isn't
Well,
it?
completely.
We're not just talking about the generalized economic downturn of the Great Depression, which was bad enough. We're talking about a very specific, devastating combination of factors that just completely upended life in places like Oklahoma, turned fertile land into, well, a desolate moonscape.
You're absolutely right to emphasize that specificity. The Great Depression certainly provides that overarching economic despair, that national backdrop of poverty and unemployment. Everyone felt that. But in the American Southwest, particularly Oklahoma, it was intensified by this dual catastrophe. First, a severe, prolonged drought that just parched the land, no rain for ages. And then right on top of that, the infamous Dust Bowl.
Right.
Imagine your entire livelihood depends on the land, right? On the rain, on the soil being generous. Then the heavens just stop giving rain. And the very topsoil, which had been loosened by years of, let's face it, unsustainable farming practices, begins to literally blow away in these monstrous black blizzards of dust. It created an utterly unworkable environment for farming. It just suffocated life and hope under layers and layers of dust.
So it wasn't just that the economy was bad, it must have felt like the very earth turned against them, like a betrayal of the most fundamental relationship a farmer has. And it sounds like this environmental disaster wasn't the only force pushing them out.
Precisely. That environmental devastation merged with these powerful economic forces to create, well, a perfect storm. As if the drought and dust weren't enough, you had banks and large landowners, and they were increasingly viewing agriculture not as a way of life, but as an industrial enterprise.
Mechanization.
Exactly. They began mechanizing their operations, tractors. Steinbeck describes them with chilling efficiency, like a red cat with a breath of gasoline. These machines could farm vastly more land with far fewer people.
Progress, on paper at least.
Maybe. Progress for some. But for the tenant farmers, the sharecroppers, who had worked that land for generations, it meant immediate and often ruthless eviction. They were just stripped of their livelihoods, their homes, their deep-rooted connection to the very soil their families had tilled for maybe decades. The banks, the powerful landowners, they prioritized profits over people, often callously demolishing homes right in front of them.
Destroying their history.
Driving families off land they had this profound, almost spiritual tie to. Steinbeck powerfully depicts that senseless destruction, like tearing down a family's history, reducing it to dust and splinters. It just amplifies that sense of utter abandonment.
And the novel really drives home that sense of destruction, doesn't it? Where once fertile land became just unworkable, and homes that held generations of memories were simply left derelict or, worse, torn down. It's almost impossible for us today to really grasp the sheer desperation. Watching your entire world literally blow away in a dust storm or be foreclosed upon and taken by these abstract, powerful, faceless forces like banks. This wasn't just a financial loss, it feels like an existential one. Now, into the scene of desolate Oklahoma steps our central figure, Tom Joad. He's just been released from prison, right? Served 4 years for manslaughter. And he comes home to find his family farm abandoned. His childhood home, just a ghost. What a way to re-enter the world, only to find it utterly transformed and just devastatingly empty. But he eventually reunites with his large extended family, Ma, Pa, his grandparents, Uncle John, siblings, and they're all preparing for this drastic decision.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is Tom's immediate reintegration into the family's plight. It's almost seamless. He's coming back from this very isolated experience in prison, a period of personal confinement, personal reckoning, only to find his entire family facing a similar, though obviously different, kind of displacement.
Like trading one prison for another almost.
In a way, yes. His personal journey from incarceration quickly merges with the collective struggle of his people. It's almost as if the walls of his prison were simply replaced by these invisible but equally potent economic and environmental walls closing in on his community. We see that initial shock of dispossession through his eyes, which makes the Joad's situation immediately relatable to the reader. It sets him up as this central figure, not just as an individual, but as a lens through which we view the larger societal crisis, and importantly, the evolving human response to it. And his criminal past, ironically, maybe makes him uniquely prepared for the harsh, often lawless realities they are about to face on the road. He's already seen the underside of things.
Right, he's not naive. And this isn't just a small family we're talking about, is it? It's a huge multi-generational clan clinging together out of sheer necessity and, well, love too.
Absolutely. Steinbeck paints this vivid picture. It's a sprawling, multi-generational family comprising around a dozen individuals. You got Ma, Pa, the grandparents, Uncle John, their children, various in-laws. Each person represents a distinct personality, sure, but also a mouth to feed, a body to shelter, an emotional burden to carry, but also, crucially, a source of strength and mutual support.
Strength in numbers, maybe.
Definitely. The sheer number of people gathered, all their meager belongings, piled precariously onto one old, beat-up truck. It immediately highlights the immense logistical and emotional challenges they face. Their very decision to embark on this journey, just getting organized and ready to move, is an immediate testament to their collective struggle. It's the beginning of their shared suffering. And this emphasizes one of Steinbeck's key themes right from the outset, the strength found in unity, in the we over the I.
And where are they going? They're headed for California, drawn by these almost mythical promises of plentiful jobs, fertile land, propagated through handbills and rumors that were, frankly, everywhere at the time. Here's where it gets really interesting, I think, and where Steinbeck truly reveals the maybe calculated cruelty behind this mass migration. This wasn't just a random individual decision for families, was it? There was this powerful, almost orchestrated narrative pushing thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people westward. What was the true allure? And what does it say about the human need for hope, even when desperate? And maybe the cynical exploitation of that desperation.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights how misinformation, or perhaps more accurately, deliberate disinformation, can drive mass migrations,
Right.
and often to serve specific economic interests.
Ah,
Steinbeck's own meticulous journalistic research for the novel, he actually lived among the migrants for a while, uncovered that many of these handbills weren't just, optimistic predictions. They were deliberately crafted, often by agents of large agricultural enterprises in California. No kidding. They painted this almost Edenic, completely exaggerated picture of California. Lush valleys, endless fields, abundant fruit, high wages, all designed to create an overwhelming surplus of labor.
to drive wages down.
Precisely. The critical aha moment here is that the desperation wasn't just met by false hope. It was actively manufactured, or at least amplified. They wanted to flood the labor market, knowing full well it would depress wages to rock-bottom levels. This is a calculated strategy of exploitation, ensuring maximum profit for a few powerful landowners at the direct expense of immense human suffering.
So it wasn't just a hopeful rumor whispered on the wind. It was a deliberate, almost malicious campaign. You could almost picture those vivid, idealized images on the handbills, maybe a family smiling in a lush orange grove, or fields just teeming with crops, contrasting so brutally with the dust-choked reality the Joads were actually living in.
Right.
This decision, this desperate gamble fueled by cynical promises, truly sets the stage for a journey that will test the very fabric of their existence. and expose the real depths of human greed. And that journey, of course, brings us to our next segment, part two, the journey west Route 66 and the crucible of migration. As the Jodes pack their meager belongings onto that dilapidated truck, the road ahead Route 66 transforms into far more than just asphalt, doesn't it? It becomes this crucible of shared suffering, a highway that will fundamentally reshape who they are.
Route 66, in this context, it isn't just a path, it's almost a living, breathing character in the novel. A symbolic crucible, as you say. It represents the shared experience of thousands upon thousands of dispossessed families. It transforms their individual struggles into this collective, almost epic migration. Steinbeck vividly portrays the physical hardships, the constant hunger gnawing at their bellies, the perpetual mechanical breakdowns of their decrepit vehicles, threatening to strand them in the middle of nowhere.
The sheer exhaustion.
Oh, the exhaustion, absolutely, from endless travel. And these physical tolls are mirrored by an immense emotional and psychological burden. It's a journey where every mile seems to strip away another layer of their former lives, forcing them to shed old identities and forge new ones based purely on communal survival. The road becomes a harsh teacher, exposing both the best and sometimes the worst of humanity.
And it's on this road, isn't it, among the broken down cars and hungry faces, that they begin to truly grasp the monumental scale of what's happening. They realize they're not alone in their desperation. Their individual plight is just one thread in this much larger tapestry of human upheaval.
Absolutely. The Jodes meet countless other migrants along the way. Other Okies, as they would come to be called,
Yeah.
which started as a derogatory term but quickly became maybe a badge of their shared brutal reality. They share stories, they share meager resources, whatever little food or water they might have, and they witness firsthand the immense scope of the crisis. This encounter with so many others, all driven by the same crushing forces, it underscores that their individual plight wasn't isolated. It was part of a massive social upheaval, a collective exodus driven by the same economic and environmental collapse back home. And it fosters this profound sense of shared community and mutual support. An understanding born of necessity that their survival depends on recognizing the we in every struggling face they meet.
Yeah.
Steinbeck shows how these roadside encounters become these miniature experiments in social organization, demonstrating that natural human instinct to cooperate, to form new bonds in times of crisis.
It makes you consider how a long, difficult journey with such an uncertain outcome, stripped of all pretense and material comfort, can truly strip away those individualistic tendencies and reveal core human qualities, both, the capacity for immense cruelty, but also for extraordinary compassion. It's a relentless test of character for everyone involved, forcing them to redefine family and community basically on the fly. And as they push westward, that journey takes a heavy, almost unbearable toll. We see this with the deeply poignant deaths of both Grandpa and Grandma Joe during the trip. They're early casualties of this desperate flight. The deaths of Grandpa and Grandma Joe are incredibly poignant, aren't they? Just heartbreaking.
Beyond the personal tragedy for the Joes, what deeper symbolic weight do their passing carry within the novel's larger commentary? On the costs of migration, the breaking of ties.
Oh, their deaths are absolutely pivotal and deeply symbolic. They represent the profound hardships of the migration itself, a journey so brutal it literally breaks the oldest generation, those most deeply rooted in the land they've lost. Grandpa's initial resistance to leaving, remember? His deep, almost primal connection to the Oklahoma soil. His death feels like a symbolic severing of the past, a final, tragic goodbye to the land that sustained them.
Grandma Jode, similarly, embodies a link to an older, perhaps more stable world. Their deaths highlight the immense physical and emotional cost of such a grueling journey, particularly for the vulnerable elderly, who simply couldn't withstand the deprivations, the stress, the crushing weight of their displacement.
Yeah.
It's also a stark illustration of the immense burden placed on the remaining family members. They have to push forward while grappling with their grief, often with little time or space for proper mourning. Their passing signals the irreversible nature of their journey. It's truly a point of no return.
And Steinbeck really drives home the dehumanizing aspects of their situation by emphasizing that lack of proper burial or mourning. They can't stop. They have to keep moving. There's no dignity afforded to the dead because the living are fighting for every single breath.
Exactly. The swift, makeshift burials, often just by the side of the road, maybe wrapped in a blanket. They highlight the brutal necessity of their situation. There's no time for traditional rituals, no space for prolonged grief. The constant, relentless pressure to keep moving, to find that promised land and ensure the survival of the living, it overrides even the most fundamental human needs for mourning and respect for the dead.
Wow.
It's a stark illustration of how their circumstances erode even basic human dignity and traditional cultural practices. It forces them into this raw, primal struggle where only the present and the immediate future seem to matter. Those hurry burials are just a tragic symbol of a fractured society and a dispossessed people.
Through all of this, though through the dust, the deaths, the mounting despair, a figure of incredible, almost superhuman strength emerges, Ma Jode. Despite all the challenges, she becomes the emotional anchor of the family, just determined to keep them together no matter what. Ma Jode is truly the heart of the family, isn't she? Embodying endurance, compassion, and this deeply practical wisdom. Her resolve feels almost superhuman. It seems like the very force that keeps them from completely disintegrating. Beyond just holding them together, how does her role shift and grow in significance as the journey progresses?
Ma Jode's role is absolutely critical, and it evolves profoundly throughout the novel as those traditional patriarchal structures begin to fray, particularly with men like Pa Jode losing their authority and their sense of purpose when they can no longer provide for their families in the ways society expects.
Right, the provider role is gone.
Exactly. Maya steps into this profound leadership vacuum. Her strength isn't loud or aggressive, though. It's a quiet, unwavering resolve, an adaptive form of strength that is just essential for survival. She's not just physically tough, she's emotionally and morally resolute, constantly mediating disputes, offering comfort, making these pragmatic, often heartbreaking decisions for the greater good of the family unit.
Yeah.
Her determination to preserve the family, to keep them cohesive and hopeful even in the face of utter despair, becomes a central theme of resilience in the novel. She really transforms from a traditional homemaker into the de facto head of the family, embodying the nurturing force of life itself and the sheer will to survive. Steinbeck shows her as the ultimate protector, shielding them not just from physical harm, but from the spiritual corrosion of their circumstances.
You see it in her unwavering gaze, her quiet strength when things look bleakest, her practical wisdom. She's the one making the tough decisions, keeping the peace, ensuring they all continue moving forward, even when hope seems utterly lost. It's a powerful statement about where true strength lies in a crisis and how traditional gender roles can be completely upended by necessity.
Yeah,
This incredible resilience, however, is going to be tested even further as they finally reach their destination, the place they've dreamed of for so long. And that destination brings us to our next segment, Part 3. California Dream Deferred Confronting Harsh Realities. When the Jodes finally arrive in California after that incredibly arduous journey, they discover the reality is starkly different from those glowing handbills they'd seen. Instead of abundant jobs and open arms, they find thousands upon thousands of other migrant families all competing fiercely for scarce work, creating this immediate, crushing sense of disillusionment. Talk about a gut punch. I mean, the dream just collapses so brutally, revealing itself as a cruel mirage. What does this profound disillusionment do to people who have already sacrificed absolutely everything, their homes, their dignity, their loved ones, on the altar of this false promise?
It's more than a gut punch. It's a profound betrayal of hope, a psychological blow that can be just as devastating as any physical hardship they endured on the road. Imagine having endured unimaginable suffering, journeyed across a continent on the explicit promise of a better life, only to find that the very promise was a lie, or at least a gross exaggeration designed to exploit you.
Yeah.
The sheer scale of competition meant that California, this mythical land of plenty, was a mirage, and the migrants were deliberately set against each other, desperate for any scrap of work, however poorly paid. This moment of disillusionment pushes many to the brink, threatening to break their spirit entirely. And it raises that important ethical question again about unchecked advertising, the deliberate exploitation of desperation, turning human hope into a commodity for profit. Steinbeck uses this disillusionment to underscore the inherent cruelty of a system that values profit over human dignity, where the desperation of thousands is seen not as a crisis, but as an opportunity for cheap labor.
The novel paints such a vivid, almost heartbreaking picture of this. It's not just a few families scattered around, it's an overwhelming number of Okies and other migrants, creating this immediate sense of dread and fierce competition for any available work, no matter how low the pay. The land isn't welcoming, it feels actively hostile.
And this harsh reality often leads them directly into life in the Hoovervilles. These weren't just temporary shelters, they were sprawling, overcrowded, deeply unsanitary makeshift camps where migrants struggled just to survive day to day.
Hoovervilles, even the name tells you something.
Right. They were, as you say, much more than temporary shelters. They were potent, visceral symbols of government neglect and social failure during the Depression. Derisively named after President Hoover, they represented the absolute bottom rung of society, a desperate attempt to create some semblance of community in the most squalid conditions imaginable. Steinbeck immerses us in these camps. He details the constant struggle for basic necessities like clean water, food, the omnipresent threat of disease, the pervasive lack of sanitation. Yet, paradoxically, these camps also became sites of nascent community formation.
Really?
Yeah, where migrants, abandoned by the larger society, found solidarity in shared suffering. They often organized communal kitchens, informal governance structures. They were both a testament to human degradation and an emerging defiant spirit of mutual aid.
The daily indignities must have been crushing, though. Just imagine the constant struggle for basic needs in those environments, the gnawing hunger, the constant threat of illness, the complete lack of privacy. It's an assault on human dignity at every turn. And adding insult to injury, the local California residents, feeling their own economic pinch, deeply resented these Okies, didn't they? Treating them as outsiders, as criminals, as a threat. Families were paid outrageously meager wages, often not enough to buy even a day's food, because landowners relentlessly exploited these desperate laborers. The hatred directed at the Okies is profoundly heartbreaking when you read about it. Why? Why this level of hostility towards people who are simply seeking work, trying to survive, trying to rebuild their lives? It's a chilling reminder of how easily fear can turn into prejudice.
It is, and it's a classic, tragic example of blaming the victim, amplified by that economic insecurity.
Hmm.
Local residents facing their own struggles during the Depression often saw the migrants not as fellow human beings in distress, but as a direct threat to their own jobs and resources.
Escape.
Exactly. And this fear was deliberately fueled and manipulated by the powerful landowners and agricultural associations. They actively propagated stereotypes and those derogatory terms like Okies to dehumanize the migrants. It made it easier to justify their exploitation and, crucially, to prevent any solidarity between the settled working class and the newcomers.
Divide and conquer.
Precisely.
Yeah.
By fostering prejudice, they prevented unified labor action. The landowners exacerbated this by deliberately oversupplying the labor market, bringing in far more workers than needed, which kept wages artificially low, sometimes so low that a family literally couldn't earn enough picking fruit all day to buy the food they needed that night.
Unbelievable.
It created this system of systemic exploitation where desperation was currency. And it raises that critical question about how economic fear can be manipulated to foster prejudice and turn communities against each other.
You see how these meager wages made it utterly impossible to survive, trapping families in this brutal cycle of debt and desperation, unable to escape the very conditions they had fled Oklahoma to avoid. It's a calculated system designed to keep people in a state of perpetual vulnerability. But within this harsh, exploitative reality, a powerful voice of conscience emerges. Jim Casey, Tom Joad's friend, a former preacher who's lost his faith in traditional dogma, and he becomes a spokesperson for workers' rights, encouraging migrants to unite and resist this exploitation. Here's where Casey truly finds his calling, isn't it? Shifting from that personal crisis of faith to advocating for collective action. What's the significance of a preacher, a former preacher anyway, taking up this mantle? And how does his evolving philosophy offer a path forward in such a bleak landscape?
What's truly fascinating here is Casey's profound evolution. His initial crisis of faith, questioning traditional religious doctrines, it doesn't lead him to nihilism or despair. Instead, it leads him to this radical new humanistic vision. This vision moves beyond abstract religious dogma to a broader, more earthly spirituality, one rooted in the interconnectedness of all people. For Casey, the injustice they face isn't just economic hardship, it's a profound moral failing. It's a sin against humanity itself. His redefinition of holy places God not up in the heavens, but right here, in the collective human spirit, in the shared experience of suffering, and in the act of selfless mutual aid. He preaches that famous line, "A fella ain't got no soul of his own, just a little piece of a big soul," meaning individual salvation lies in communal solidarity. His call for unity, for people to stand together, to organize, to recognize their shared humanity, is presented as the only viable path to resistance against these overwhelming power structures. He's articulating a completely new kind of faith, faith in humanity, faith in collective social responsibility, where helping each other is the highest form of good, a truly revolutionary idea for its time and place.
He argues that organizing and standing together, understanding that shared big soul, is the only way to challenge the exploiters, to find strength in numbers. It's a shift from, individualistic piety to a social gospel of justice. But Casey's activism, of course, ignites a spark, but it also invites dangerous repercussions, because those in power rarely welcome challenges to their control. This leads us into part 4, the deepening struggle, sacrifice, and shifting power dynamics. As the Judds move from camp to camp seeking work, they witness escalating violence against organizers and strikers. And tragically, Casey is arrested and then later brutally killed for his activism, which deeply, deeply affects Tom.
This is a pivotal, absolutely gut-wrenching moment in the novel. It underscores the brutal realities faced by anyone who dared to challenge the status quo back then. Casey's death isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a martyrdom. It's a sacrifice that profoundly galvanizes Tom. It's not merely a plot point, it's a stark statement about the extreme sacrifices demanded in the fight for justice when powerful interests feel threatened. Steinbeck shows us the ruthlessness of the authorities, the vigilantes willing to use violence, even murder, to suppress any form of collective resistance.
Yeah.
Casey's final words, echoing the last words of Jesus, "You fellas don't know what you're doing," elevate his death to this almost spiritual sacrifice for his people. And it profoundly impacts Tom, who witnesses it firsthand. It's a turning point that transforms individual suffering into a collective struggle for liberation.
And we see the direct impact of Casey's death on Tom, don't we? Transforming his personal journey from just trying to get by with his family into this far larger, more abstract, but profoundly important commitment to a broader cause. The student truly becomes the master here, in a way. So Tom, who started as this man just released from prison for manslaughter, initially very pragmatic, focused on his own survival, he now becomes a symbol of resistance, an inheritor of Casey's vision. That's an incredible arc. It's one of the most powerful transformations in American literature, I think. What does this personal growth signify for the novel's larger message?
Tom's journey is truly the heart of the novel's message on personal growth and potentially societal transformation. He internalizes Casey's humanism. He moves from that initially individualistic focus on his family's survival, almost an animalistic drive to just get by, to a broader understanding of collective responsibility and social justice. His experiences on the road, in California, witnessing the systemic injustice, the dehumanization of his people, and ultimately Casey's sacrifice. They awaken this deep sense of moral outrage and purpose within him.
Yeah.
His famous farewell speech to Ma, where he vows to continue Casey's work, to be, "Wherever there's a fight, so hungry people can eat, even at great personal risk, knowing he must go into hiding." That represents the passing of the torch. It signifies the enduring power of an idea, the idea of solidarity and justice, even when the individual messenger is silenced. Tong's transformation demonstrates that even ordinary people, when confronted with profound injustice, can become agents of change.
He moves from just wanting to get by with his kin, his own family, to dedicating himself to this more abstract but profoundly important fight for justice for all the oppressed. It's a powerful evolution from self-preservation to self-sacrifice for a greater good. Meanwhile, as Tom embraces this larger fight and has to leave, the family continues its heartbreaking decline, financially, emotionally, with Pa Jode losing his authority and Ma taking on ever greater leadership responsibility.
This depicts a crucial, almost painful shift in family dynamics under that extreme pressure. Porjo's diminishing authority reflects the breakdown of traditional patriarchal roles when men can no longer provide in the way society expects. His inability to find steady work, his inability to protect his family from relentless exploitation, it strips him of his traditional standing.
Yeah.
And it leads to this deep, debilitating despair in him.
You really feel it.
You do. In contrast, Ma's leadership demonstrates this flexible, adaptive form of strength that is absolutely essential for survival. She embodies the resilience that keeps the core unit intact, making practical, often agonizing decisions, maintaining morale, and becoming the de facto head of the family. This reversal of traditional roles highlights how crises can dismantle established social orders and reveal where true, enduring strength really lies. She's not just practical. She is the moral center, the absolute keeper of their humanity.
You see it in her decisive actions, her unwavering resolve, her ability to face reality head-on, contrasting so sharply with Paul's growing despair or his inability to act in the face of overwhelming odds. It's a powerful statement about where true strength lies in a crisis, a testament to the enduring power of matriarchal wisdom and love. And then we get to the final, unforgettable scenes. After torrential rains destroy their already meager shelter, the Jodes seek refuge in a barn. There, Rose of Sharon, who has just tragically lost her baby, performs an act that is just incredibly powerful. She breastfeeds a starving man, symbolizing this almost primal compassion, human solidarity, and profound sacrifice amid utter despair. This final act is just. It's one of the most iconic and emotionally resonant moments in all of American literature, isn't it? It's heartbreaking, yet somehow also incredibly uplifting. What makes this particular scene so resonant, so enduringly symbolic of Steinbeck's larger message?
This is, without doubt, the novel's most iconic and potent symbol. a scene that has sparked endless discussion and interpretation over the decades. After immense personal loss, her baby dying due to their harsh, unsanitary conditions, Rose of Sharon's act of nursing a starving, dying stranger transcends the immediate tragedy. It speaks to the ultimate depths of human compassion and solidarity. It's a primal, defiant act of giving life, even when her own life feels utterly broken and her body is recovering from its own profound loss.
Yeah.
It's a deliberate act of life-giving in the face of overwhelming death and despair. A profound statement that even in utter desolation, humanity can find a way to nurture, to connect, and to offer sustenance. It's a stark reminder that even when society fails spectacularly, when institutions crumble, when all seems lost, individual acts of profound empathy and selflessness can persist. It represents the ultimate rejection of the individualistic struggle for survival, replacing it with this selfless collective act that defines humanity itself.
To perform such an act in the context of torrential rains, lost shelter, profound personal grief, and the stark reality of impending death, it makes it even more desperate and significant. It's an enduring image that captures so much of what the novel is about. The struggle, the loss, and that unyielding, almost miraculous glimmer of human connection. These profound events and indelible characters aren't just details, are they? They're the threads Steinbeck weaves into the timeless themes that elevate the Grapes of Wrath far beyond just a historical narrative. What stands out to you as the most fundamental of these themes?
Absolutely. I think we have to start with part 5, enduring themes and unforgettable characters. And first, the struggle for survival, which is, as you hinted, far more nuanced than just finding food. This isn't merely about the physical struggle for basic necessities, although that is profoundly and viscerally depicted: the gnawing hunger, the search for shelter, the battle against disease. More deeply, it's about the struggle to maintain dignity, to hold on to hope, to preserve one's fundamental humanity when stripped of absolutely everything that defines you, your home, your work, your community standing.
Right.
Steinbeck shows how the constant battle against hunger, the indignities of the makeshift camps, the threat of violence, how it relentlessly chips away at the human spirit. Yet the Jodes, and others like them, continually fight to remain whole, to retain their sense of self in a world that seems determined to dehumanize them. It's a battle not just for life, but for the very essence of what it means to be human.
And that resonates so deeply, even today, doesn't it? Whether it's economic hardship in our own communities or forced migration due to conflict or climate change globally, the struggle to maintain dignity amidst extreme adversity is a universal human experience. Steinbeck really tapped into something timeless there.
Indeed. Then we have injustice and exploitation. The novel powerfully portrays how migrant workers were systemically oppressed by wealthy landowners and corporations. And crucially, this wasn't accidental or simply unfortunate, it was deliberate and calculated. The power dynamics were incredibly skewed. Landowners purposefully created that glut of labor by luring thousands of desperate families explicitly to keep wages artificially low. This ensured maximum profit at the expense of human suffering.
Yeah.
Steinbeck exposes the systemic nature of this exploitation, this cycle of debt, starvation wages, and desperation that was nearly impossible to escape. The suppression of workers' rights, the violence against those who tried to organize, the instances of burning crops to maintain prices while people were starving, all underscore the brutal lengths to which powerful entities would go to maintain this exploitative system. It's a stark portrayal of capitalism unchecked by ethical considerations.
That's why those artificially low wages and the glut of labor are such crucial details. They highlight a deliberate strategy of oppression, not just unfortunate circumstances. It shows the calculated malevolence behind the system.
Precisely. Next, family and community is just a bedrock theme. The Jode's strength fundamentally comes from their unity, right?
Yeah.
And Ma's unwavering determination to keep them together. But the novel also beautifully explores how the definition of family expands. As they encounter other migrants on Route 66 and in the Hoovervilles, their circle of support grows to include fellow sufferers. They form this broader community of shared suffering and mutual support, embodying that we instead of Ian philosophy. It's a profound shift from individualistic survival to collective solidarity.
Yeah.
This collective spirit, this reliance on each other, becomes their most powerful weapon against the dehumanizing forces trying to break them. Steinbeck illustrates that when traditional family structures are broken by external pressures, a new, broader community can emerge, bound by shared experience and mutual aid, creating a powerful, albeit fragile, new social order.
It's those constant efforts by Ma Jode to keep the family unit cohesive, to maintain that crucial we, which truly drives this theme home. Even when they're not blood relatives, they cling to each other, sharing what little they have, understanding that their collective survival depends on it.
Exactly. Another profound theme is faith and humanism. Jim Casey's philosophy is central here, and it's quite revolutionary for the era. His transformation from a traditional, maybe dogmatic preacher to a proponent of a humanistic, earthbound spirituality is fascinating and challenging. For Casey, the highest form of good isn't about an abstract deity or some afterlife. It's about helping each other right now, about recognizing the inherent interconnectedness and maybe divinity in all people. His belief that there is one big soul that all individuals are a part of underpins this humanistic vision, emphasizing collective action and social responsibility as the true path to salvation, a salvation found not in heaven, but in earthly justice and compassion. He critiques organized religion for its hypocrisy sometimes, and instead advocates for a faith rooted in the tangible, moral imperative to care for one's fellow human beings.
And his speeches and then Tom's adoption of his ideology really show how that shift in faith from the divine to the human becomes a driving force for radical social action. It's a powerful reimagining of spirituality.
Finally, we have hope and resilience. Despite the overwhelming hardships, the pervasive despair depicted throughout the novel, it isn't entirely bleak.
Yeah.
While Steinbeck doesn't offer easy answers or a traditionally happy ending, far from it, he infuses the narrative with this undeniable sense of the enduring human spirit. The small acts of kindness, the unwavering solidarity among the migrants, their sheer will to survive. They all suggest the possibility of change, or at least endurance, a glimmer of hope. It's the enduring human capacity for compassion, for mutual aid, for steadfast determination that prevents the story from succumbing completely to nihilism. The novel seems to argue that true hope doesn't come from external promises, like those handbills, but from within, from the collective strength and the unbreakable spirit of the people themselves.
And Rose of Sharon's final act, of course, stands as the ultimate, almost shocking symbol of that enduring hope. That fundamental human capacity for care, even in the most desperate circumstances, transforming personal tragedy into a universal gesture of life. Now let's turn our spotlight to the unforgettable characters that embody these profound themes and truly bring this story to life. First up, Tom Joad. Recently released from prison, he becomes the central figure representing personal growth and social awareness. A reluctant hero, perhaps, for his time.
Tom's journey is truly transformative, isn't it? It's a classic hero's arc, but rooted in such stark realism. He starts as a man focused on his own survival and the immediate needs of his family, almost pragmatic, a survivor hardened by his time in prison. But as he witnesses the systemic injustice, the dehumanization, and Casey's martyrdom, he undergoes this profound ideological awakening.
Yeah.
He evolves from an individual concerned primarily with self-preservation to a selfless advocate for all the oppressed, embodying the novel's powerful call to action and collective resistance. His decision to carry on Casey's work, knowing the personal danger involved, marks his complete transition into a symbol of social consciousness, even a revolutionary spirit. He becomes the living embodiment of Casey's philosophy, promising to be everywhere suffering and injustice exist, a truly iconic figure of rebellion and hope.
Then there's Ma Joad, the moral and emotional backbone of the family, embodying endurance and compassion and becoming, arguably, the true leader of the Joads.
Ma Joad is the indomitable spirit of the family, often described as the most powerful character in the novel, and I think that's right. Her unwavering strength, her practical wisdom, her fierce determination to keep her family together. It's the glue that prevents them from completely disintegrating. She adapts to every new hardship, continually finding ways to nurture and protect her loved ones, often making these incredibly difficult sacrifices with a quiet resolve. As traditional male roles crumble under the pressure, her leadership becomes undeniable, making her the family's true leader and the preserver of their humanity in the face of these dehumanizing conditions. She is the embodiment of resilience, the nurturing force of life itself, and the steadfast moral compass for her entire clan, demonstrating how love and pragmatism combine to ensure survival.
And Jim Casey, the former preacher turned activist who inspires Tom and others with his transformative humanistic vision, ultimately becoming a martyr for the cause.
Casey's role is critical as both a spiritual and a moral guide. His philosophical evolution, moving from that traditional evangelism to a belief in human solidarity and collective action. It provides the intellectual and ethical framework for the migrants' resistance. He serves as Tom's mentor, absolutely shaping his worldview and guiding him towards a larger understanding of justice. And even after his brutal death, his ideas and his spirit live on powerfully through Tom. continuing to inspire the fight for justice and demonstrating that a powerful idea can definitely outlive its originator. Casey represents the possibility of a new kind of faith, rooted not in dogma, but in shared humanity and the imperative to fight for dignity and justice right here on Earth.
And finally, Rose of Sharon, Tom's pregnant sister, whose individual journey of loss culminates in that single powerful act of sacrifice that gives the novel its most profound symbol of hope.
Rose of Sharon undergoes perhaps the most harrowing individual journey of loss and suffering in the book. She begins as this young woman, full of innocent hope for a new life in California, only to experience crushing disappointment, the profound grief of losing her baby due to the harsh conditions, and the complete shattering of her dreams.
Yeah.
Yet her individual suffering culminates in that act of profound, selfless giving. Breastfeeding the starving man isn't just an act of charity. It's this primal, life-affirming gesture that transcends her personal tragedy. It connects her to the universal human experience of compassion and survival. She symbolizes the raw, enduring force of human connection that persists even in the bleakest moments, offering a flicker of hope for the future of humanity, a defiant act of life against the forces of death.
So we've journeyed with the Jodes. From the dust-choked fields of Oklahoma, across that grueling Route 66, to the harsh, unwelcoming landscape of California. We've seen their struggles, their losses, and their incredible, unyielding resilience. What a profound deep dive this has been into a story that not only defines an era but illuminates these universal truths about the human condition.
Indeed. The Grapes of Wrath is not just a story of one family. It really is a universal tale. Of displacement, yes, but also systemic injustice, and the profound strength of the human spirit under unimaginable hardship. Steinbeck masterfully combines that gritty realism drawn from his own journalistic investigations with potent, almost biblical symbolism. To challenge us, even now, to confront social inequality and recognize the inherent dignity of ordinary people, even those stripped of absolutely everything. Its narrative structure, weaving individual stories with broader social commentary, truly elevates it beyond just a simple novel. It remains a cornerstone of American literature, of course, but its themes are shockingly timeless and tragically relevant. The exploitation of labor, the dehumanization of migrants, the resilience of community in the face of despair, the power of collective action. These are conversations that continue to be vital today, echoing in current events all around the globe.
Sadly true.
It's a powerful reminder of the enduring importance of empathy, solidarity, and justice, not just in times of crisis, but always. Steinbeck, through the Jodes, reminds us that man, unlike any other thing alive, has a soul and a godlike one. That capacity for good persists.
So what does this all mean for us then? The Grapes of Wrath asks us to consider not just how we survive when everything is taken away, but maybe who we become in the process, and how our individual struggles can ignite a larger fight for justice and human dignity. It leaves us with that powerful image of human connection in the face of despair, a testament to the primal urge to give and to nurture. For you, listening now, what stands out as the most enduring lesson from the Jodes' journey? What act of solidarity, no matter how small, might still hold the power to change the world or at least sustain a single human soul when all other systems have failed? It's a question that, nearly a century later, still begs an answer.